season number 126 for MSU. Season number 125 for the Spartans was amazing. What do you do for an encore?
I want to find out who I am. I want to find out what I got. That's why I came to Michigan State. So I want to find out what I got. There's only one way you can find out, guys. Though. You have to lay everything on the line. You have to give it everything that you have.
Play fake to Broussard. Thorne throws right side.
Nice
fingertip catch. And a heck of a grab. And turning toward the end zone. And ready to score for Michigan State is Jeremy Bernard. Touchdown, MSU. And he's in trouble, and down he goes. He is sacked by Aaron Brule. Back to Peyton Thorne. Throws back of the end zone. One-hand grab by Daniel Barker. What a catch. Touchdown, MSU. Hit, hangs onto the football, and falls forward. Chris Bogle made the play. Inside the 10, a leaping catch. It's Keon Coleman into the end zone. Touchdown, MSU.
There it is.
Stay upright, but he's
Ball came
under
out.
arrest. He's hit. The ball is loose.
We got it.
And the Spartans have recovered. Berger at the 40, the 35, and the 30. Now the 25 and the 20-yard line, dancing along the far right sideline. Hands the ball off to Berger. Pile drives right up the middle. Touchdown, MSU.
Thorne down the middle. Pass caught. Touchdown, Spartans. That was Trey Moulton. 43 yards out and 17 in green and white.
There's Salapak being pressured.
Oh, man.
And he shakes away. But Jacoby Windmon has him for a sack anyway. Spartans win it 35-13.
I love this football team. I mean, this team, man, like, listen, we have a chance to be really, really good. Again, this is just the beginning. That's not the end. This is one game. We're 1-0, okay? And then we're going to the next one.
Welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm here with my co-host, Brian Masalam. I'm Justin Thin. Thanks for joining us again this evening. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I'm still celebrating your new gig here. Congratulations on
Appreciate that.
becoming the beat writer for Michigan State University for the Athletics. So
Appreciate that.
How's that going for you?
It's going well. It's going well. It's a great opportunity. I know Colton did a great job making sure that it was understood for everybody that the Michigan State beat is one that deserves coverage. It's a market that has a lot of enthusiasm and passionate fans. So after he left, I kind of decided to see if that's something I was qualified for, and turns out that that's what I'll be doing for the rest of the season and contributing after every single game. So we'll see how that is received by the fans.
Well, I think you're more than qualified, and judging by the reaction on social media, the Spartan Nation is extremely excited to have you. So congrats, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
On to MSU football.
Yeah, the more important
MSU
topic.
beats Western Michigan 35-13. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It was a game that looked close at times in the third quarter, but Michigan State was never really at risk of losing that. I don't think anybody would say that was the case. There were a lot of good moments in that game, some that were familiar, such as Peyton Thorne throwing 4 touchdown passes, though at times there's some improvement there that can be had. But at the end of the day, solid run defense always is Michigan State's staple, so that was a repeated theme. But also some new themes that were seen in this game, some edge rushing that was done, a new flexible defensive scheme in the backfield. So some new and some familiar signs for Michigan State in this week's win.
So your early observations and your observations of the game.
Right.
Kind of tell us what you saw out there in game one, because game one can always be tricky.
Right. Yeah, for sure, because Western Michigan was going to have a new offensive coordinator, obviously, Peyton Thorne's dad, Jeff Thorne. So Michigan State didn't know exactly what they were preparing for there. Overall, in the entire game, I think there were a lot of positives, more positives than negatives for sure. The overall kind of assessment that I took away from the game is Michigan State has a lot of options on offense and defense. On offense, that was seen from 5 touchdowns from 5 different guys. On defense, it was seen with all the different guys that got to the quarterback, the different ways they got to the quarterback, the different ways each guy was used, which we'll dive into as well. But a lot of optionality in terms of the personnel on offense and defense was my number one takeaway.
So when you look at, like, let's talk about specific players, right? When you look at Jacoby Windmon's debut, what did you see?
Yeah, Jacoby Windmon was a guy that coming into this game, we were not entirely sure how he would be used because at UNLV, he was a great defensive end in 2020, honorable mention all-conference. Then 2021, shifted to inside linebacker, was all-conference, second team. So he was very good in both roles. Coming into this Michigan State season, we didn't know where we would see him line up. So from the first snap on, he was mostly a stand-up edge rusher. In doing so, he had 7 tackles, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble. And I would also say that 2 other sacks, one that was Aaron Brule's first sack of the game and one that was Chris Vogel's sack. He had a lot to do with that. I think on Aaron Brule's, he was the one that got 2 hands on the quarterback and kind of had him move left in the pocket, and Aaron Brule was waiting for Jack Salopek there. And then on Vogel's sack, he was the one that got him to climb the pocket and retreat enough to the point where Vogel was able to disengage and get the sack. So honestly, 4 sacks, but I credit him with 6. And I believe PFF gave him 8 total quarterback pressures. So I think on 24 pass rush, I think he had over half of his snaps that led to a pass rush credited.
Definitely making a difference. So, expanding more, you had an interesting tweet this weekend about when you broke down the film of Jacoby and the way he was rushing the passer and the way that he was trained. Let's play that now for us.
Great game last night from Jacoby Windmon in his MSU debut. The UNLV transfer had 7 tackles, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, which you see right there. He used a variation of the ghost move, as you see right there, with the duck under. Didn't use the long arm that Robert Mathis and Von Miller and some of those guys used, but had a lot of success with it. And I think you can credit that to Brandon Jordan, MSU's new pass rush specialist. But also, Jacoby has always shown a great deal of athleticism and bend going back to his UNLV days. In 2020, he was an All-Mountain West Conference honorable mention defensive end before he then moved to inside linebacker and was All-Mountain West second team. So you see a lot of versatility and athleticism from him. I expect him to have a great year for Michigan State, and he has a wide array of pass rush moves that he's added to his arsenal since transferring.
Very, very good insight. You've been high on him from day one. You've talked about how MSU should use him. Yeah. And obviously he came off the edge. You've been training under Brandon, and when you watch the tape on him, when you look at it, what jumps out at you?
I think the fact that he just looks different and he passes the eye test was the very first thing I saw. I think December 2nd was my first tweet on Windmon. I think I went back to look at the record there. Back then, before he even committed to Michigan State, I think that what I saw from him at UNLV, the way he moved sideline to sideline at inside linebacker, but then put his hand in the dirt and led the team in sacks, while looking just apart, if you look at him physically, I think I just saw a guy that Michigan State hasn't had someone like that here in a while. I don't think I put it that way back at that point. I wanted to see how things would translate in camp. And I think the proof is in the pudding now. I think he's a special breed.
Just got to stack them. You got to get better every day, right? So Jacoby's set to join us later today. But Cal Halliday, 10 tackles, all over the field. Thought he flashed. Thought he showed some speed. Yeah. What were your takes on that?
Yeah, Cal Halliday, just as reliable as they come. Last year as a redshirt freshman, had obviously a breakthrough season. He was All-America, all-freshman. And he was a guy that, once again, 10 tackles, flying all over the field. He's going to be huge for Michigan State this year, especially with Darius Snow out. We'll talk more about that later. But just a solid guy they're going to count on a lot. But I think somebody else that had a great game, Brian, Chester Kimbrough. He's a solid cornerback in the slot. He's a guy that last year was improving ever so slightly every week, but some injuries here and there. And a lot of fans were excited to see how he would look in a new role this year. As we had previewed throughout the offseason, Michigan State was set to move into a more NFL type of 4-2-5 where the nickel is no longer a thumper. It's a slot corner, a true coverage guy. And that's Chester Kimbrough. I was looking at the analysis of what he kind of had in terms of his performance, and he was targeted 6 times. He allowed only 1 completion for 12 yards. And with him being the slot corner and Western Michigan's best receiver, Corey Crooms, lined up in the slot over 75% of the time, that kind of tells you most of the game he was covering their best receiver, and he gave up 1 catch on 6 targets. I think he was one of the most underrated players from that game, if you ask me.
Because it was quiet.
Right.
Because it was quiet and
Yeah.
because there wasn't any plays in which the PA announcer could announce his name. But when
Exactly.
you watched the tape, he jumped off at on the tape and did a phenomenal job. We had Jaden Reed on a couple weeks ago, and he talked about who would surprise us.
Yeah.
And who did he say?
He said Ben Van Sumeren.
And who had a hell of a game?
Yeah, Ben Van Sumeren. You saw him flying around sideline to sideline. Running backs, as you see there, wide receivers on jet sweeps, quarterbacks leaving the pocket. None of them could get past him on most accounts. And he's a guy that always had that athletic side to him, but he seems to have really, really tuned up his agility. Always been a workout warrior, but has added a new dimension to his game. He is a guy that is going to be huge for Michigan State also now that Snow is out. And I think the stuff you saw from him tools-wise, that's not a flash in the pan. Those are translatable skills that can yield production against any competition that is on Michigan State's schedule. So I don't know if he'll go ahead and rack up 11 tackles once again, but he has some skills that Michigan State's going to need, and I expect him to come up big for them throughout the season.
No question. I mean, he flashed and he lived up to the billing. It's interesting, right? When there's media hype, there's TV hype, and then there's players watching everyday practice, right? Watching guys flash in practice.
Yeah.
And I think Jaden hit the nail on the head when he talked about Van Sumeren. So we're excited to see him develop and grow as the year goes on.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Jalen Berger. I thought he had a fantastic game.
Yeah, you see Jalen right there on the screen. He's a guy that we knew had the more power, strength kind of skill set out of the 2 transfer running backs. At Wisconsin, he was known for always having the correct decision-making in terms of which hole to hit. And he would go ahead and get every yard that was blocked for you and nothing less, no wasted time dancing. So he's a guy that went ahead and showcased that this week. And he had a great jump cut in the 4th quarter at about, I think, the 8-minute mark. And he took a ball 50 yards. That really added to his production. He finished the game with 120 yards and a touchdown on just 16 carries. He's a guy that just, he's going to be not wasting any holes. He's going to go ahead and get you every yard that's blocked for, like I said. So I'm excited to see how him and both Jarek Broussard go ahead and have some production when the holes are maybe a little smaller against Big Ten production. I would say that Broussard is the guy that has a little more wiggle, a little more bounce. But Berger is a guy that seemed to me quicker and more explosive than he was at Wisconsin.
I agree.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting.
He actually looks about 10 pounds lighter. Am I wrong in saying that?
I agree. That's what I looked like that to me too.
Totally agree. I thought the way he attacked the burst in the hole, and he actually had the wiggle. He had more of a wiggle.
Yeah.
And maybe it's when you watch Wisconsin and how slow their offense moves, it looks different. but he definitely had some wiggle and some speed. So
I also want to add, if you look at the PFF stats, which I know are subjective in a lot of ways, but he was graded Michigan State's best pass blocker on the entire team last game.
That is very, very important as a back, to understand who to pick up on the blitz pickup. And to understand who to block.
Yeah.
And a lot of these backs that don't see the field, that people wonder, he's a great running back, how come he's not on the field, is because understanding who you need to block on either a run play or especially blitz pickup.
Yeah.
And understanding who your guy is. And that, over the experience that I have had, that's kept a lot of running backs on the sidelines.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
Is that when you do not know who to block on blitz pickup.
Yeah, and when you start to watch draft coverage and it starts getting towards April and you see all these guys that were Doak Walker finalists, those top 5 kind of running backs every year, you think, all right, these guys are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the draft. Some of those guys end up being the 9th or 10th running back taken just because those guys are watching the tape on pass blocking. So huge for Michigan State for Jalen Berger to have that in his repertoire. And that does not deem Broussard irrelevant in passing downs because he actually was one of the best route runners for Michigan State in the game. So both guys have different assets that they can bring on passing downs for Michigan State out of the backfield.
Good stuff. All good stuff. And everybody's fan favorite, Keon Coleman. Did he flash or what?
He did. He absolutely did. I think he had a quote this offseason where he said, those 50-50 balls, to me, they're 80-20. He said, I'm going to go up and get them. That's paraphrasing, but those were the numbers I believe he used.
I love that confidence.
And you see right there on the screen, he's just ball skills. He knows exactly when to separate. He has a frame that cannot be taught. He's 6'4", and that's not generously listed. He's legit 6'4". And you saw it, and I think that as Michigan State looks to rely on other guys now that Jalen Naylor is gone, you're going to see Keon Coleman, Jeremy Bernard, who also flashed. These guys are going to make it so that you don't feel that big of a loss for Speedy Naylor, who's now with the Vikings. And you're going to see a lot of production through Michigan State's receivers not named Jaden Reed.
Rumor has it, there's only rumor, at the Quality Dairy, Tucker and Izzo had to be held apart of who gets Keon Coleman. So that's only a rumor. I can't confirm it, but he's obviously highly coveted, extremely talented, and I know both programs are excited about him.
Yeah.
When you look at QB1, I think he'll be the first to tell you there's room to improve. He threw for 4 touchdown passes.
Yep. And he was the first to tell us.
He was. That's what I love about him, the leadership, right?
Yeah.
And I love the leadership. You know, he threw four deep balls, 4 touchdowns. His passing accuracy could probably improve.
Yeah.
And I think, playing against Dad, is, I mean, me playing against my dad would that's something that, you would think about all the time. But he's a great leader.
Yeah.
And I think definitely he was the first to tell you, because he is the leader of this team and this program, that he can get better, and I'm very confident that he will.
Yeah, I think when you know Peyton's mindset and the way he approaches the game, if he was the area of concern from that game, you're in a good spot, because I think you can count on him to be the one to straighten it out. So that's why when I talk about my observations for the game, I look at it in a very positive way, because I know Peyton's the kind of guy that he's going to improve upon. He's going to learn from it. In the press conference after the game, he's the one that's categorized his performance as disappointing. And on, I think it was Tuesday, when he had his midweek press conference, he kept harping on the fact that there were a lot of plays he'd like to have back. There's 1 or 2 plays that they think they could have scored touchdowns on. So when your quarterback is thinking like that, and he's a guy that's a veteran, he's a guy that approaches the game and his craft in a professional way, I think that's why you can really feel good about the overall observations from the game.
I actually loved his attitude after the game. I loved it. He owned it. He pressed. He did a lot of the things, and he saw. And to me, that's a sign of a great leader. Yeah. Sign of a great leader that, this will, that he recognized what happened. And he's, in my opinion, obviously as a Davey O'Brien finalist, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Yeah. He's a great leader. Mm-hmm. He comes from his dad's a coach. And I think he'll be just fine.
One of the observations I had when watching over Peyton's performance after the game, because I was trying to figure out maybe what led to it, whether it was offensive line play wasn't giving him time or whatnot. I kind of found that the offensive line did a good job holding up. I think a lot of the struggles were just kind of, like you said, one-off. Maybe it was the dad thing. It wasn't rooted in offensive line play that scares us going forward. So that's a positive takeaway from that whole analysis, because they held up for the most part. Not anything that you're going to be like, wow, sensational performance, but I think if you would have told me before the game that Jarrett Horst was going to be on a pitch count, and you were going to have Brandon Baldwin there, this is still a MAC level team. It's not FCS or anything. I think they play better than I thought they would on the offensive line.
So when you looked at the O-line, how did you evaluate them? I mean, who started at left tackle, right tackle?
Yeah.
What happened? What were your thoughts when you looked at the O-line? Because Cap is one of the best O-line coaches in America.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Because you saw like what he did when he took over and the offensive line production they had with Kenneth Walker last year. And yeah, it's a good question. When you look at the offensive line, left tackle, that's where we all kind of suspected that Jared Horst would be the starter and that he would play every possible snap that he could. But we ended up finding out that he was not fully there, fully healthy, I suppose. And that's why he was kind of on a pitch count. So in his spot, it's Brandon Baldwin, the former Independence Community College product that signed with Michigan State in 2021. So this is only his second year with the program. I think it's only his third or fourth year playing football because he was a big basketball guy in high school. So he performed admirably, I would say. I think he beat my expectations. I was closely watching him during the game, and he was a guy that never was the reason for any breakdowns. He was just a solid guy. You didn't notice him, which is what you want out of an offensive tackle. And then beyond that, moving from left to right, you had J.D. Duplain, who was as solid as it gets. I think he was Michigan State's highest graded offensive line blocker. Nick Samak, same thing, very, very solid. Then Matt Carrick and Brian Green, they kind of swapped back and forth. Nothing off the charts there one way or the other, so I guess you'll take that. And then Spencer Brown at right tackle. He's going to be Michigan State's starting right tackle, playing every snap where he's healthy, and no complaints there either. So like I said, nothing remarkable, but if you were to ask me how I would have expected them to do if Jarrett Horst was on a pitch count, I would say that they performed better than what I would have thought.
Good to know. Very good to know. One fan is asking what ice cream flavors were Tucker and Izzo ordering. Butter pecan, just so you know. Butter pecan, yeah, that was a big fight.
Just rumors, though. Yeah.
It's just rumors.
Yeah.
Again, we weren't there. This is all hearsay. It's secondhand information, and we're not one to pass along rumors, but we are tonight. So we're going to get it all cleared away. We might have an update next week, actually, for you. So that's what we want. But talk a little bit of MSU, the MSU transfers and freshmen.
Yes.
Shined.
Yes.
Absolutely shined. How about that?
Yeah, I think that was almost the most exciting part about this game is to see how they would be used, what scenarios, the configuration, the scheme, and how they would do. So in that regard, first we'll just take a look at the performance here. These stats were kind of put together. This graphic was put together by Rhino Blennis of The Only Color. So
thank you. Credit to you, Ryan. Thank you.
So we see Jacoby and Jalen, who we've already discussed, Jarek Broussard as well. But the other guys, Aaron Brule had 1 sack, and that was on only 1 pass rush. So he made the most of that. You see Jalen Berger there with his 120. Daniel Barker, he was a guy, two targets, 1 catch, 1 touchdown, one-handed in front of the student section. Also had 2 carries. I expect Jay Johnson to use him much more and in continuously creative ways as he needs to open up his playbook. Obviously, he didn't want to give away too much there, but now that he finally has a tight end, I expect him to be a heavy usage guy. And Jeremy Bernard's electric touchdown there that he had a lot of yards after catch on. I think that kind of shows you why a lot of us were excited about Jeremy Bernard. When Michigan State got him after he was released from his Washington letter of intent, I said right away that would be one of Michigan State's best players in the entire signing class. I saw, I think, 6 plays against Bishop Gorman his junior year, and I knew he was the best route runner Michigan State had landed in years. And when Jaden Reed was on our show a couple weeks ago, he said, quote, he's more advanced than I was as a freshman. And we saw it. We saw it on Friday night.
We did. You know what? That right there, that snippet, that shot of the transfers and freshmen shining, that is a credit not only to Mel Tucker, but to the maestro, the general manager, Saeed Khalif, and to the MSU recruiting department for really identifying that talent, helping fill those gaps. And kudos to them for all their hard work, all their diligence, and everything that they've done. Because clearly over the last couple of years, transfers, freshmen have made an impact on this program. So you have to give credit where credit is due. So Saeed Khalif and your staff, keep up the great work that we're doing. identify what you got to identify, fill the gaps, and really we're excited about where this program is headed.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to read more about kind of the usage rate of some of these guys, the newcomers, how they were used, deep dives into schematics, my article that went up today for The Athletic, you kind of see that right on the screen there. So I dove deep into kind of what we saw and what that tells us about their usage the rest of the year. So if you're interested in that, definitely go check that out for sure.
Great stuff. On to some very difficult news. Darius Snow and Xavier Henderson are out. And, obviously this one hurts, right? Because Darius was a great leader. It's just sad to lose such a great leader, great person, great human being. And, we wish him all the best. It's just never easy when you lose one of your leaders. And X, we don't know how long X is going to be out for, but he was injured. And so, Justin, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure.
And who fills in?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You did a great job kind of encapsulating the sentiments around the injury. Snow is, by all accounts, a very well-liked leader. He's a guy that you put him in whatever spot, and he's going to be reliable for you. He was a nickel thumper kind of guy last year. Was very reliable in making tackles. Rarely ever missed a tackle. This year he was going to be a guy that was going to be a coverage linebacker sort of variety. He was probably going to do a good job in that regard, so he'll be missed. But kind of, as you said, thinking about how they'll be replacing him. Last game on Friday, Aaron Brule was on the field for 9 snaps. 4 of them was in pass coverage. 4 of them were in run defense, and 1 of them was as a pass rusher, which is where he had that 1 sack. And that tells me that with him having that many snaps in pass coverage, he's going to be one of the main guys that fills in for Darius Snow. When he was at Mississippi State, he first, I guess I should note, received a 2nd-round draft grade before the 2021 season started by Matt Miller. So very good player who had a slightly, a season that didn't meet his expectations, but at the end of the day, this is a guy that has tape of him being good in coverage, and you saw the tendencies Michigan State used for him, as I just said. So he'll be one of the guys that I think will be replacing Darius Snow's snaps as a coverage linebacker, inside linebacker, even though he has the pass rush skills. But he'll be able to utilize those when Scotty Hazelton dials up a blitz still. He's not just going to be a coverage guy. And like we talked about earlier, Ben Van Sumeren is another guy that I think he has the athleticism to do it. So I think they right now have the depth, and I think they'll be able to tread water there.
How about Jaden Mangum?
Yeah, talking about Xavier Henderson's absence, Jaden Mangum was the guy that came on the field right after Kendall Brooks himself got hurt, who was the first replacement for Henderson, but he came back later in the game, so all good there. But yeah, Mangum and Brooks, those are 2 guys that they're very, very, I guess, new to Michigan State fans in terms of on-field performance. But Mangum was a prized recruit that it's been, I guess, 2 years now since he's been receiving heavy coverage from us on the recruiting game. And Kendall Brooks, named last year, that got some buzz when he committed. He was an FCS DB, but he was a guy that in his tape, he hit people. And you saw that in the game. And I think he's going to be the guy that'll be starting for Michigan State. If I had to handicap it, he'll be the one starting next to Angelo Gross back there for Michigan State. So we'll see how he does in coverage. I think he had a more impressive tackling performance than a lot of us expected. I don't recall exactly how he did in coverage, but I think Michigan State should be fine with him filling in at safety there, and then Jaden Mangum be the next guy off the bench.
Good stuff. On to the Zips. 4 o'clock Saturday. The Akron Zips invade East Lansing, Michigan. When we talk about Akron, who kind of had a rough stretch playing against St. Francis, they looked to be in serious trouble last week.
Yeah.
When you watch some of the tape, Akron quarterback DJ Iron threw for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs. They got a nice transfer and former Pitt wide receiver Shockey Jacques Louise on 8 receptions for 102 yards. Cam Wiley carried the ball 21 times, 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. obviously we need to take away the run. We need to control the line of scrimmage. It doesn't look like that up front defensively Akron is as formidable. But, you never know, right? I mean, you never know. Hopefully Peyton can have his way. We're hoping that the offensive line can show improvement. And, this is a good test here leading up to the Washington game. And kind of, right, your biggest improvement is from game 1 to game 2. And being able to tighten the belts and correct some of the mistakes and get ready before that trip out west. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think you put it well. It's a good primer for the Washington game because this is where you should be able to iron out your final kinks that you might have. And what you're going to see is Mel Tucker preached about after the game. He didn't like the cramping. There were some miscommunication issues. Things of that nature, I think, should be fine-tuned before this game. And everything should be seamless in that regard before they go over to Washington and play the Huskies. And also, you should be able to stifle the run against these guys. I know the running back had 85 yards last week and 2 touchdowns, but Michigan State played a very formidable running back last week in Sean Taylor. He's a guy that should have been more of a threat than he really was. So that says volumes about what Jacob Slade, Simeon Barrow, those guys did for Michigan State on run defense.
Played very well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Michigan State should be fine here, stopping the run against Akron. And if the Spartans are as good as a lot of us think they are, this is a game where they should have it in hand, I think, going into halftime. And ideally, it will allow you to rest some of your starters before you go ahead and play Washington. You're going to be able to see some backup quarterbacks get some snaps. I expect Kaiten Hauser to get quite a few snaps in this game if it goes to plan. So this is a game that should be exciting in terms of some observations on guys we might not get to see.
So when you watch the O-line and you watch the secondary, what are your thoughts on those two position groups?
I think one thing I want to say about the secondary, when you look at a certain stretch of last week's game, they looked worse than they really were. I believe it was the last 3 drives of the third quarter and the first drive of the fourth quarter. The game was at its closest point. And the game log, if I'm recalling correctly, went Michigan State missed field goal. Then Akron got the ball. They converted a 3rd and 7 on that drive, went ahead and kicked a field goal. The next drive, Michigan State had a 3-play punt, a 3-and-out. Then Akron got the ball back and they converted a 3rd and 10 and a 3rd and 8. So in that 2-drive span from Western Michigan when the game was at its closest, the Spartans gave up 3 third-down passing conversions on 3rd and long. Michigan State fans are thinking, oh no, same issues as last year, right? But if you take a step back and you forget the fact that those issues were accentuated because they happened in close occurrence and when the game was at its closest, and you zoom out to the overall game, Michigan State gave up 33% of their third-down conversions all game. Last year, that would have been good for 13th in the nation, right above Cincinnati. That was in the college football playoff. So the secondary was not bad. I know that part of the game, those occurrences in quick succession made it look like that, but they were pretty solid.
Wow, that's good intel, good insight. Always a pleasure. So we're ready for the Zips. Nice, I don't want to call it a tune-up because football can turn on you, but we need to get ready for Washington and clean up some things. So we're excited for that. So now it's time for Owen's MSU Athletics 360 update, where we talk about every sport MSU related.
What up, everybody? It's time for Owen's MSU 360 update, where we give you the look around all Michigan State athletics. Let's dive right into it, starting with volleyball. Michigan State starts 6-0 for the first time since 2012. MSU won their matches 3-0. They beat Navy 3-1 and VCU 3-2. Rebecca Poljan was named All-Tournament Team MVP. Evie Duzema and Meredith O'Gorman were named to the All-Tournament team as well. MSU had 17 aces aces against Navy on Friday, which were the most for MSU in a match since 1983. And now flipping over quickly to men's soccer on Thursday, Western Michigan took down MSU at DeMartin Field 1-0. And then on Sunday, MSU fell to number 14 Akron 2-0. Now over to women's soccer. On Thursday, MSU took down Dartmouth 4-1. Rudy Diodati, Cameron Evans, Rania Senhaji, and Jordan Wickus all scored for the Spartans. On Sunday, MSU fell to number 11 Arkansas 1-0 in a really close match. Now over to field hockey. On Friday, MSU went on the road and took down UC Davis 5-2. Georgia Davies, Merrill Hansen, and Ellie Rutherford all scored. Hannah Jarvie had a pair of goals as well. Then Sunday, they fell to Stanford 1-0 in a shootout. Until next week.
Owen, thank you for that 360 update. That was phenomenal. Really appreciate that because we want to give a whole view of MSU athletics. On the recruiting, talk to us, Justin.
Michigan State landed Colton Hood from the state of Georgia. He's a 3-star from the state of Georgia, so those that follow my work, they know exactly how I feel about Georgia 3-stars. I think they're as good as probably any other state's 4-stars for the most part. And Colton Hood is a guy that follows the trend of maybe ranked a little lower than he should be, but having an offer sheet that far supersedes that ranking, as he chose Michigan State over offers from Clemson, LSU, Penn State, Florida, Ole Miss, and others. So great offer sheet, a lot of schools that know how to evaluate corners. And Michigan State was on him back in early June, pretty heavy. And now they cycled back. They're here in early September and decided to make him part of the class. So welcome to Colton Hood. And I think he's going to be somebody that is going to prove that his ranking is underrated for sure.
Excited to have you. We also got a transfer coming our way.
Yep.
Ken Talley from Penn State earlier today committed.
Yep.
What can you tell us about Ken?
Yeah, Ken is a guy that is he's a 4-star from the Philadelphia area.
Your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's well, hopefully he's an Eagles fan. But it's a guy that he's going to come in and probably redshirt this year, if I had to guess. Kind of just get acclimated to the weight room, learn the playbook and things like that. But has a lot of potential. He's a 4-star for a reason. I think he was listed on Penn State's roster as a linebacker. But he's probably going to be more of a Sam linebacker, or in Michigan State's scheme, I guess I'd best describe that as maybe what Jacoby Windmon did in week 1. And he'll be interesting to see how he's used. And I guess that'll depend on the trajectory of which way they have his weight go. If they have him gain weight to be a down defensive end, if they keep him as a stand-up. So just something to monitor there in the long run. But definitely gives Brandon Jordan somebody to mold and work with.
That's wonderful. You know, speaking of Brandon Jordan, before we get to our guest,
yep,
the National Defensive Player of the Year, let's talk about the Brandon Jordan effect. Can you play that video real quick?
Last one. Hey, I'll get to his hip. There you go, good. Hey, step. Get out.
Kimbrough's the guy after it rotated around on the ground a few times. Chester Kimbrough comes in and
Salopek. Pressure from behind, held on to the football. That seemed miraculous. And brought down by Chris Bogle, the transfer from...
Tell you what, he's done one remarkable job. You know, tell us a little bit about what you view when you watch our DNs and the way they rush the passer. What's different this year from last year?
Yeah, I think you see a wide array of athletic pass rush moves. Even Aaron Brule's one pass rush where he got the sack, he had a spin move that you need to be a next-level athlete to execute on defensive end.
It was an NFL move, you ask me.
Yep. And Jacoby, you saw the ghost rush. You saw the duck under. You see the long arm at times. These are moves that Brandon Jordan has been working on with Jacoby since he was in high school. The video you saw, the first half of that, working outside on the grass, that was Brandon Jordan working with Jacoby back when he was in high school. And you saw Jacoby have some of those rush moves at UNLV. They're not all new from his Michigan State tenure, but I'd say that they come from Brandon Jordan in a lot of ways because you see BT's NFL clients using them. And I think it's undeniable the effect that BT Jordan has had on Michigan State almost overnight. He couldn't have had a better product on the field from his guys if you wrote it in advance, because he had guys that were not with the program originally. Aaron Brule, Chris Bogle, Jacoby Windmon come in here and combine for 6 sacks. And he's the guy that got it out of him. And obviously Marco Coleman, Kevin Vickerson as well. But it's undeniable the results that he's gotten in his short time here already.
Speaking of Jacoby Windmon, before we intro him, let's play our intro video on the National Defensive Player of the Week.
I got a little bitch from the hood, I call her gang, she don't play with that base shit. I be fucking this NBA nigga bitches, you know I ain't never gonna say shit. New contract big like I play ball, little boy ain't nothing to play with. I told her pull up, she told me she can't, her nigga be sharing location. I was riding in the ghost with a ghost gun, seen you out with your kids, so you old one. And my man in the can while you taking out the trash, you gon' pop with the mat like don't run. They up here, they all get how you ever had.
There he is, the Walter Camp National Defensive Player of the Week, Jacoby Windmon. How you doing today, Jacoby?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourselves?
We are blessed, man. We're lucky to have a fellow Spartan dog, and extremely, extremely proud of you. And thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you.
Yep, no problem, man. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, so, Jacoby, we were just talking before you joined about Brandon Jordan. He's the guy that posted on Twitter, working with you since, I think, high school, if I recall correctly. What can you tell us about what you've learned from him, not just in the last few months, but what have you learned from him throughout your time working with him?
I learned a lot from Coach BT. You know, he does a great job with just, you know, getting us together and, you know, just working new moves. And that's something I love about him, because each day is something different. And I think the biggest thing is for our opponents to know what we're doing, but also setting up for our next move. And I think that's something he does great with.
So after the game, I was in the press conference room, and a lot of people were asking you about your performance, and you're as humble as you always are, talking about how it's just one game. You're looking to stack games. But at the same time, you're human. You watch the tape. Obviously, you had a great game. You have all these accolades. What does it feel like just seeing this sudden, realization of your hard work? What does that do for your confidence level and just your motivation going forward?
I think it's great for my confidence level, because it's something I've been working for all my life, and you know, I've been working pretty hard to be in the position I am in. So I think that just comes with the hard work I put in, and you know, it's finally starting to pay off, but it's still more work to do. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of the man I'm becoming, and the football player I'm becoming, and I just continue to develop and get better each day.
God, you got me smiling, man, because I'm proud of you too, man. I'm proud of you too, and I'm proud of you developing, you know, watching you develop as a player and as a man, and just couldn't be more proud of you, you know, as a fellow dog. But what made you pick Michigan State out of every other school?
I just saw a better opportunity for me in my future. You know, I just came here on my visit. I felt the brotherhood. I just felt like guys knew this was the place I needed to be. So when I just sat down and talked to Coach Tuck and the other coaching staff for hours, and, you know, I just came to a conclusion, like, this is the best place for me to be. And, you know, Coach BT, he gave me that call as well, that he might be coming his way. So that just kind of put the icing on top, because I know what type of guy he is. He's one of those guys that's quiet, but when it's time to work, he get after it. And, you know, just we continue to let each other grow, you know, and watch each other grow as men.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Kobe had a lot of options when he hit the transfer portal. I know Penn State was on him heavy, and some other schools as well. So Michigan State, it was not easy. It was not easy to land Kobe's talents, but they got him. And it seems like the vision that you had for what Michigan State can provide in terms of the opportunities has also come to fruition. But I guess what I want to ask is, you get to play in the Big Ten now, one of the better atmospheres and pageantry, fan bases, whatever you want to describe it as. What was that like for you Friday night, playing in front of that night home Big Ten crowd at Michigan State?
Man, that was awesome. It was electrifying because it was definitely something I never seen and experienced, but it was great to get in the woodshed and, you know, see all those different fans and hear those different voices just, you know, be loud and so confident and just happy that that football season is back. So that's definitely some energy I was able to feed off during the time in the game. So, you know, I appreciate for everybody for coming out and, you know, packing the woodshed out.
You haven't seen nothing yet. Wait till you play them Buckeyes and you got that school down the road and you want to talk about hatred and the war. It's coming because we take it around here very seriously. Speaking of coming, Tuck coming. And when you first met, what were your first impressions of Coach Tucker when you met him?
Honestly, I say when I first met him, he's just one of those laid-back guys. I could tell, like, you know, he's been there before. You know, he know what it takes to win. He know talent when he see it, and not only just the football part of things, but just, you know, helping us grow as men, because I believe you're gonna be a man much longer than a football player. So he's just one of those people that helps you and teach you the lessons of life, and that's something I appreciate about him because he knows what it takes, and he knows what it takes for you to be set up after football, you know, life after football.
Yeah, so Jacoby, joining you as new Spartan transfer additions on your defensive front there, we had Aaron Brule, Chris Bogle, two other guys that racked up sacks this game. You guys played off of each other all game long, one guy disrupting to set up another guy's sack. I think in my rewatch, I saw that both Bogle and Brule's first two sacks, you moved the quarterback off his spot. They were there to shore up the sack. What can you say about those two additions and what you see from them, their skill sets, and how all you guys work together in that defensive front?
For the most part, Chris, you know, that's my guy, and Aaron, both of them my guy, and those my brothers. So just to see them work and just to see it pay off, because we out there with each other every day. So I see them putting in the work, and I see Aaron training to be a better player every day. I see Chris training to be a better player every day. And it's just exciting to see it all come together on game day. So just the abilities that both of those guys bring, you know, Aaron being able to be one of those backers to have the rare ability to come on the line of scrimmage and rush the passer, back off the line of scrimmage and play linebacker. That's just an awesome ability to have. And I think that is something that'll be very vital when we play other teams that he could do that. And Chris Bogle, man, he's just one of those people who got that dog mentality, man. He gets after the quarterback. You know, he's very sharp in the run game, and you know, I just love playing with those two guys because I know one thing. I know they're gonna make some plays, and I know they're gonna miss some plays, but I know they get right back to neutral, and you know, they get the job done. So it's just exciting to be out there with not only them but the other 10 guys on the field because we all feed off each other.
You know, now you got too much publicity, right? You're gonna be drawing them double teams, and they're gonna be getting that. They're gonna be one-on-one on the other side, and so that's gonna happen. But I want to ask you the culture shock of, you know, leaving such a quiet, you know, podunk town like Las Vegas, right? Heading to a metropolis like East Lansing that's all night. What kind of culture shock have you experienced coming to East Lansing?
I'll probably say I haven't maybe like, you know, in Vegas, it was more of like just flashy lights and, you know, it was one of those cities that don't stop, man. It was a party city, but when I got to East Lansing, it just was one of those cities like I felt like I was at home because I'm one of those guys that don't usually go out a lot. So when I got here and I seen like it was a small city, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the place I need to be. But that was during the winter time. So, you know, I had to embrace that snow. It was like one of my few times seeing snow. I got a snowstorm coming at me. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I had to plan ahead for that. I mean, but it was definitely a good experience. And then, like, you know, just up until now, you know, it's football season, just to see all these people, you know, come out and how much of a football town and basketball town, you know, just a sport-orientated town that this is. I just it was very shocking, because in the beginning I didn't think like people would be out, but like now that I see that games go on, like, you know, like everybody come out to see the games, and that's something I never experienced, and it was awesome.
Yeah, you know, in Vegas there's a lot of distractions, but East Lansing, they love their football, and just wait, because you are going to be the center of attention. The intensity, the way that how serious the woodshed is taken. You know, a Spartan Nation is so excited to have you, and I'm telling you, we're so proud of you. We're so happy to have you. Your humility, the way you work, as you know, the type of young man that we want representing Michigan State University. Just as a former player, makes me really, really proud. Just texting you today, your humility, how humble you are, really, I can't speak enough, Justin.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of Brian's sentiments there. So, Jacoby, I got to ask you, when you're listening to music before the game, getting ready for your 4-sack performances, what's going through your ears? Well, what are your top 5 favorite rappers?
Garth Brooks.
No.
Top 5, I have to say NBA Youngboy.
Of course.
Sure. Lil Baby. I got a little Rod Wave in there. I'll be listening to Lil Wayne, a little Lil Wayne. You know, I gotta represent for the city.
For sure.
That's one of the GOATs. And Lil Durk for sure.
This has been the best. This has been the best top 5 we gotten on the show, at least from my perspective. Because I got Lil Baby, I got Lil Wayne, I got Lil Durk in my top 5 right there. So Jacoby knows ball and Jacoby knows rap. And obviously he had to throw Youngboy in there, but it's I'd say that's more impressive than your last performance. So salute to you. Make sure you get everyone hip to Lil Baby, and that's all the questions I got for you.
Jacoby, we appreciate you. Well, thank you for joining us, the National Defensive Player of the Week, Jacoby Windmon. We expect 3 more of those. All right, this year.
Yeah.
We expect 3 more.
I got more than that, man.
I love that. Because who texted us today? He's 3 sacks away from Hutch's record
from his career total, I believe.
Yeah.
I haven't fact checked it myself.
I haven't fact checked it, but I got a text today saying you're 3 sacks from surpassing that guy down the road that was the #1 overall pick for sacks. But
whoa! Let's not give him too much credit. He's number 2 overall, Brian.
Number 2 overall. I'm sorry. Yeah. So how about we're going to go one at a time? We're going to face Akron, and that's all we're going to focus on, and we're going to let the play speak for our results. So we appreciate you joining us,
Jacoby.
Fellow dog. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best. Stay healthy, go green, and God bless. Take care.
Yes, sir. Go white. You already know it, man. Y'all do the same. Thank you.
Take care. Jacoby Windmon. What a mature young man, wise beyond his years. You can just tell. He is a leader. He's built for football. You know who he reminds me of?
I know exactly who you're going to say.
Tell me.
K9.
K9 as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Shalik Calhoun.
Oh, I see.
He reminds me of Shalik Calhoun.
Yeah.
He reminds me of that maturity level, that leadership level, that humility. That is, he's got a great future ahead of him.
Yeah.
So.
But Michigan State now, the back-to-back years, at least it's looking like Jacoby Windmon is going to be this year's headlining transfer edition. Him and K9, man, they're both cut from the same cloth. Both guys that burst onto the scene and kept their humility. And that reminds me of a lot of the same quotes that K9 had after that Northwestern game. He got national recognition, but always talking about stacking games in the next game. And I think that's one thing that you got to give credit for Mel Tucker and Michigan State, especially interviewing a lot of these transfer additions that they get the last 2 years. A lot of same characteristics in their personalities, a lot of the same humility, a lot of the same just put your nose down and work mentality. Even Jalen Berger, he was the other transfer that spoke to us after the game. He had the same thing. He talked more about what he wanted to improve, talked about how he was disappointed that he was brought down on one of the times, said he should have been able to put his hand down and go because that's a drill they do. Just a lot of guys that they're not looking to recount their success. They're looking to look forward at how they can improve. Because
that's the culture that Coach Tucker is building, right? It takes what it takes. Stack the days. Get better. Keep chopping.
Yeah.
The aggregation of marginal gains. How many more do we want? Huh?
You can make 10 sweatshirts with those phrases.
You walk out of a press conference and every beat writer is all riddled. They don't know what he's talking about. They're just writing stuff down. So I'm telling you, though, he's got everybody bought into the program. He's got Spartan Nation bought into the program, and we're excited. So we got Akron on Saturday. We got the Dearborn Heights Raiders against the Redskins on Saturday. Nick Musalem kicks off. We're excited.
I'm going to be checking that PFF grade, Brian. and if he lets anybody touch his quarterback, that's on your coaching.
Grading. I'm coaching O-line. We're got the best offensive line in the history of JV football, just so you know.
Yeah, we'll see. Quarterback's probably going to be looking like Devin Gardner from a few years ago.
Minus 48 yards rushing. Let's hope not. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am Brian Musalem, along with my co-host Justin Thin. You are watching the SD4L show, Spartan Dogs for Life. Thank you very much for joining us. God bless and go green.
Please close your eyes, turn around, and count to 9. When you open them, I will be gone.
Okay, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Spartans said they were tougher. The Spartans said they would flinch.